at AkzoNobel, we're a big paints and coatings company. We're working on collaborative innovation for a long time. Now, around 2 years ago, we sort of gave it an additional spin through our Paint the Future program, and that's what I'm going to zoom into in this session. So this is really about this one program in our larger effort on collaborative innovation. So just to be mindful of that this is not the only program that we run in AkzoNobel. We have many collaborations going on, but this is actually helping us really to accelerate and to also tap into new partners that we previously weren't working with. So let me see if I can move my slides. There we go. So what we're aiming for with this program is really around three main objectives. So I'm going to start in the middle, which might be a bit strange, but anyway, I'm going to start with the middle one. Not that it's the most important one, but I want to tell a story here about AkzoNobel as a company. So around the time about 2 years ago, AkzoNobel was going through a big reorganization where we actually split it up, our company, into a chemicals company and a paints and coatings company. And the paints and coatings part continued with the name AkzoNobel. So there was a big push at the time, of course, to really show to the outside world who we were. And that we are a very innovative paints and coatings company. So we also use this program really to show to the world that we are open for innovation, we're open for collaboration, and we want to do things really well in that sense. So that's to put it a little bit also on a timeline and also a little bit of an explanation why we went very, very big with our first program in terms of communication. Now, business, this is basically what we're aiming for. In the end, it's all about our customers. So we want to really get great solutions and products to our customers. And this is of course really a funnel. So it starts with great ideas that we really bring forward to delight our customers. So that end goal we always have in mind when we start a program. In the end, it's all about the business and delighting our customers. Now, by doing this, we're doing things in a new way, and that's then also touching on really our culture in our company. So we also use this Paint the Future program as a vehicle to really get more people involved in a different way of working, work faster, and really learn how to collaborate as well. And mind you, we have people in our company that have been in research for 20 years, maybe 30 years, and they're used to a certain way of working, which can be really good. And this program can be in addition to that, but that requires also coaching in terms of how do you collaborate now, how do you share your knowledge, etc. So with every program that we do, we basically start with looking at these three objectives and then designing our program around that. So this is a very plain picture, but just to show you that, also to emphasize what I just talked about. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about really the programs that we're doing, but I want to make clear that this is part of our collaborative innovation funnel. So the Paint the Future programs are very much focusing on getting those ideas into our company, and we're selecting projects for follow-up, but we're putting as much emphasis also on our internal processes as well. And I'm not going to talk about that here, but I just want to also emphasize that you raise expectations by running these kind of programs. And yeah, the best way to kill it is actually to never follow up on the selected projects anymore. So there's a lot of attention inside our company on how do we now fast track the projects that we select. We call that on the slide the launch pad, and make sure that it lands in the business and actually starts to generate value as well for both us and our partner in the end. And so great innovation, it's not just the ideas, it's both the ideas and the execution that makes it successful. Now, what does the program look like? So Paint the Future, our end goal basically with this program is to get to really establish a very active ecosystem. Well, in order to get there, we need growth programs to get people connected so that they know what we're trying to do, that they know we're open for collaboration and what the topics are where we have collaboration needs. So we're focusing right now really on a model where we have growth programs, as we call them. And in the back of our minds, we continue to think about, okay, how can we make this continuous and sustainable? So as I said, we started in 2019 with a big global startup challenge. And when we did the startup challenge, we were actually just thinking about running a startup challenge. So we didn't think about yet, this is still going to be there in 2021. We just thought, okay, we're going to do a startup challenge. We're going to use this really to position ourselves as an innovative paint and coatings company. And then we'll see how it goes. This is such a new thing for us. No idea how this is going to develop. Well, that ended actually being a big success. So while we were in this program, we already started to prepare for a program with suppliers because we saw that there was a big need there. We actually got approached by quite a few suppliers who asked us, you know, is there something for us like this as well? So we said, well, not yet, but we can make that. So that was our second program that we did last year. And then this year we're actually right now in we have an accelerator happening in Brazil for the Brazil Startup Challenge. We've done an employee challenge. We're looking for a program with academia, and we're right now preparing for a second supplier challenge. And I'm going to walk through 4 of these programs. So I'm going to give you a bit more insight into the Startup Challenge Supplier Program, Brazil, and the employee. And I'll use those programs also to tell you a bit about the characteristics and how we design a program like that. So let me start indeed with the startup challenge. So as I said, this was really the first time we were doing this, and yeah, there was a big communication angle. We had contacts, of course, with startups and collaborations going on, but I think the big challenge when we started with this was really to tap into this ecosystem and make known to startups that we were open for their ideas. When we start to design a program, we actually start with talking with each other, with our team, but also with external trusted partners to talk about the value that we're going to generate and what is the value to this particular stakeholder that we want to invite, and what is the value to us going to be. So when we talked about this startup group, to us it was pretty obvious. Okay, so we don't know who they are. We don't know where it's going to come from. So we need to go really big with communication because we need to get people to know that this is happening. And in the end, value for a startup, of course, for the ones that we select as future partners and that we start a project with, it's pretty clear what the value is to them, because we really want to accelerate together and help them also to grow faster than they could do without us. But we also said, well, we want to actually bring value to a larger group than just the 5 that we can start projects with. So we designed this program with first having an open time where startups could submit their proposals, but then we really built an accelerator program into this. So that's actually on the slide where you can see that we're sort of pitching this also to the startups. We designed a 3-day accelerator program in Amsterdam, where we selected 20 startups out of the group. We flew them into Amsterdam and we exposed them throughout 3 days to our experts. So they had sessions with marketing people, with engineers, with legal people, with HR people, and we set them up with a really tight schedule so that they could connect with all of these people, and they had their own meetings room, and you know they were really engaging. So we tried to give them in 3 days what otherwise would take them 3 months or even longer to do without us. So that was already value to a large group of startups, even if they didn't win. So I think that was really a success factor in this program. This was also the first time we used the Paint the Future platform, obviously powered by Hype, and really developing also together with Hype on what this would look like. And if you're going to go to this platform today, it's actually going to look very different than it did then, because it was really focused around, you know, the 5 challenges that we had running in the Startup Challenge. And of course, now we're moving with the platform really towards managing the different programs. So this was, but this was really, really great start for us also for the startup challenge. So we closed with 160 submissions, which for us was really great result. And what you can also see on this slide is that we had a very lively discussion going on. So we had all the challenges set up with their own challenge teams, with experts and with commercial people, technical people, and other enthusiasts from our company. So you can see from the 160 submissions, we actually had also 1,700 comments. So that is a very nice ratio. Also to show already during this live phase that there was, many interactions going on, and we trained everyone up front. So we said, okay, this is about value creation, value to the startups. So within the legal boundaries, feel free to add your expertise to the startup, because even if we don't invite them, they still walk away with a good feeling about, having interacted with us. So everything was really around creating that value also to the startups. So then, as I said, throughout this program, we started to get the signals from suppliers that they were also looking for something like this, and they really were interested. And we started to design the program, I think, even before we closed off the startup challenge. Now, this is a different audience because suppliers, we know who they are, and we have already an established relationship with them, which can be an advantage because we know who they are, so we can really tailor our message there. But also both parties have something to lose. And that was less the case with the startups because you don't have that relation yet. So, there wasn't really something to lose for either of us, as long as we both behave properly, of course. But with suppliers, that's slightly different. So we said, okay, to bring value to suppliers that already have a relationship with us, we need to do it differently. So we said, okay, what is it that what would bring value to the suppliers other than, again, being selected with their proposal? And we interviewed some key suppliers of ours, and everybody actually said the same thing. We want to know what your needs are, and we want to know it very explicitly, because then we can tailor our proposals to what you actually need. And for both of us, that's an efficiency gain. So we don't have to pitch, a wide range of ideas that you need to assess, and then you say no, and we keep trying, and there's a lot of inefficiency there. So we designed this program in a way that we could be very clear on, these are our needs, and be very open, which is, of course, also a little scary. These are our needs, and this is where we think, you can have a contribution. And this is something that we want to solve in a collaboration. So in this program, we actually started with an event. So we kicked it off. We invited 35 suppliers for this first wave, already in our minds with the fact that we wanted to scale this at some point, but we needed to start somewhere. So we started with 35 of our suppliers. They could bring 2 persons to an event, again in Amsterdam. And for a day and a half, we walked them through a whole program where we had very senior people from our company talk about our priorities. So we had our CEO actually kicking off and saying something about, why is innovation important? We had our CTO really talk about the longer term innovation vision. We talked about our technical director was talking about really our innovation drivers and our priorities, and what kind of topics do we foresee as challenges for our industry going forward. And we also have our chief procurement officer really talking about the balance between pricing and cost and innovation, because that's the thing you always have to balance with your suppliers. And it's very possible that you have suppliers that are really good at delivering on time, really nice pricing model for us, etc., but are not good at innovation. And that's fair enough, right? Not all suppliers are the same. So that's something that we really wanted to talk about with these suppliers, to say, it's fine. We know we have a big range of suppliers. And for some, we want to accelerate more on innovation. And of course, the ones we invited to the event were in that box. So we kicked it off. We talked about the challenges. We talked about the challenges in our industry. And then we opened up our platform for this limited group of suppliers to submit their proposals. We kept it also confidential. With the startup challenge, all the submissions were public, so everybody could see. If you would go to the platform today, you could still see those submissions. From the supplier program, we kept that within AkzoNobel and the suppliers, because we have competitors there in the program, and they all feel, of course, better if it's not out there for the world to see. Even though we're not working with non-disclosure agreements, so no legal agreements in there. We're saying that everything they submit should be, let's say, the legal term non-confidential basis. So we got 35 suppliers involved. We had 115 submissions in a couple of weeks, and we selected 5 as part of the Paint Future program. A spin-off effect that we noticed while we were running this was actually that the challenge team members got really excited about a lot of these submissions, and we got feedback like, "Oh, I didn't know they could also offer this. I didn't know that they had this expertise." So actually a spin-off effect was that we had 37 submissions that we somehow entered into existing programs, or someone just got in touch with the supplier just to have a phone call to hear more about it. So there was a lot of additional value actually for us in there, and also for the suppliers, that more people got to see what they were able to offer, and it led to many nice spin-off discussions. And actually we have quite a few projects that we're not really managing from a Paint Future point of view, but and they're still being drafted and being executed at the moment, in addition to the 5 that we selected. So that was a really nice spin-off effect, and we're also taking that into account now with designing the second wave program. We just closed the program actually on September 2nd. We were planning to have something sort of earlier in the year, but due to, of course, all the restrictions due to COVID, we had to postpone a little bit. So we ended up doing a virtual wrap-up session with the 35 suppliers. And again, we had presentations by top management, really talking about, okay, what are the results? How are we following up on these projects? And what are we going to do also with the second wave? So then onto another startup challenge. So also after the global startup challenge, we immediately got questions out of the regions to say, well, it was nice, and we saw some startups participating in the global startup challenge, but we think we could actually do something locally. And one of the most enthusiastic requests came from Brazil. So we actually started to design also a local startup challenge, which gave us, of course, new challenges in the sense that you need to run this locally. So we expanded our team, and we had a local team in place in Brazil to organize this. But we still, of course, wanted to have the Paint the Future philosophy, the way of working, all the learnings incorporated in there, and bring that together with the local knowledge about, okay, how do you do this in a Brazilian environment? So that was launched in March, and we, of course, had well, it actually was supposed to launch a little bit earlier, but we ended up launching in March. And of course, that's the moment also, again, when both in Europe and in South America, COVID really hit. So we had a long chat about this. What do we do? Do we stop? We had the first submissions already coming in. We already invested a lot in social media and outreach, etc. We had a roadshow planned, so a physical roadshow with the team in Brazil really going to different locations, giving presentations and being in startup events, etc. We decided not to stop because we thought, okay, we still can have an impact here, and there's still startups out there that we can bring value to, and probably they can bring value to us. So let's be agile, and let's swap this program around, which the team did. I actually personally was not involved in this, so I can't take any credit for this. The team did an awesome job. They totally flipped this around, and they organized webcasts instead of the roadshows. And as you can also see in this picture, the webcasts were very effective and really caused and drew startups to us and convinced them to submit. This picture actually with the pre-closure spike in there, this is such a typical development. And every time we run a program, we get so scared when we're in the middle, and Brazil actually did pretty well. With suppliers, we were very low for a long time, and then suddenly you get that pre-closure spike. So by now we learn to have nerves of steel, but even then this is always very exciting in the last week or two, because suddenly you see them come in. So yeah, again, also an accelerator program at the end, which is happening right now. So and there's a number of startups now involved in this, October 7 and 8. So hopefully by the end of today, Brazilian time, we'll know who the selected projects are going to be. And then we're going to follow up again on those projects as well. And then we did something that we hadn't planned, so our plan can always change. We were thinking about doing something internally as well, because we saw that every time we got so much excitement from people in AkzoNobel when we were running an external program. And then we thought, okay, we have an internal platform. We do ideation internally already. We run campaigns and channels, etc. But can we use everything we learned from our external programs and do a very big internal employee challenge? It never seemed like the right time, and we were busy with other things, etc. And then everyone went into lockdown, and we sort of looked at each other through the camera, and we said, okay, people are at home, and a lot of people are very busy, also personally, of course, taking care of sick people. Maybe they're ill themselves. A lot is happening, but there's also a lot of people in our company that are actually at home and they want to have a connection, and we can make that connection. We have all the tools in our portfolio to actually make that connection internally. So I think within 2 weeks we sort of designed a program and got this off the ground. And we actually designed an employee challenge around the COVID-19 topic. And we asked our colleagues to say, okay, what have you already learned to do differently in this time that we should maintain? Because a lot of people were actually doing things differently. They were forced to do things differently. And of course, Asia was already going through this for months. And we're actually already getting back to working outside of their homes. So we thought, okay, we can tap into that experience also in Asia and now in Europe. A lot of people are doing things differently. There must be a lot of things we can learn from this because we have so many smart people in our company and creative people. And then we also asked the second question to say, okay, maybe there are people out there with ideas, but they're not yet able to implement because they're working from home, or it's just not the right time, or they need some budget or a larger team, and maybe we can help them. They just have the idea, they're not yet doing it, but we can help them when hopefully restrictions lift. So we run this internally, big communication campaign also internally, and we ended up with getting 196 ideas from 30 countries, and this was really overwhelming. We got so much response from people and great ideas and people collaborating online. So that was really, really awesome. And our executive committee, they selected 4 ideas themselves, and they also had personal team sessions through camera with them, and they're working now with the teams to implement their ideas. So I think this was really a good outcome. Again, when we designed this program, we thought about, okay, also bringing value to our colleagues and bringing value to the company. So this was really about getting people connected. And for that reason, we also tried out a different way of ranking the submissions. So up till now, we've always had very technical and very detailed evaluation forms and really looking at business value and technology value, etc. But in this case, we thought, okay, let's use the wisdom of the crowd. And we know we have this pairwise option also in the Hive platform. And let's just get people to tell us, what do you think is the best solution? So we tried this as as a first trial. We did a big triage pairwise evaluation, and we invited, I think it was actually close to 600 employees, and we asked them all to rank ideas. And this again caused a lot of engagement, and we got again great feedback from people that said, oh, really thankful that I was able to participate in this way. And it makes it also way more transparent. And then we also decided to do a second pairwise also with our executive leadership team. And then, as I said, our executive committee selected the top ideas. So we got really good feedback on this. In that sense, we really got the engagement we wanted. Also, people indicating that they hope we would do it another time when they would have more time, because as I said, we did acknowledge a lot of people were struggling with their personal situation while we were running this. So yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a follow-up. But the people that were able to contribute, it really gave them a sense of pride that they were working for AkzoNobel, and really happy to participate. So those were 4 programs that we did, and I already touched on some of the key factors that we take into account when we design these programs. I think yeah, governance always sounds a little boring, but it is very important, I think, for running something like this. And one of the key success factors, and I think I mentioned this also a year and a half ago when I spoke at the Hype Forum in Bonn about our startup challenge. But one of the key success factors is really get top-level support. So in our case, we have a sponsor board with our CEO and our CTO and our director for comms and investor relations. And they are really doing the overall Paint the Future program governance. So they are looking at, okay, what are the right programs to do? What is the right timing? What direction should this program take, etc. So I think that's very important that you have that kind of commitment also to a program like this, because we're very vocal about it. We're also in some cases vulnerable because we share also where we want to collaborate on and where our gaps are. So it's very important that you get that support. Now we have also a core team where we have a Paint the Future program lead, which actually is not me. We have a full-time person who's overseeing these programs and really making sure that it's all aligned and all the separate elements come together. And there's one other person full-time supporting the program. And there's so many angles to this. There's also event organization involved. There's program design. There's platform management. So there's a lot of work coming always from this. So comms is always in the core team as well. When we run a program like a supplier program, there will be a program manager for that specific program, which sometimes is our Paint the Future program lead. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's someone else, depends on what makes the most sense. And then, of course, as I said, we have event organization, people will chip in, and the program relevant functions. So this core team, there's 2 persons actually full-time, but the rest are people that are being drawn from their, let's say, regular job, and really as a network team, we come together and we make sure that this gets done. So that's a very yeah, agile team basically, and we draw the resources in that is needed. In our extended team, we always have someone from legal, extremely important, and they're involved from the start every time that we design a program. And of course, we have technical support for our website and platform. And then there's this whole shell around us. So this is not a small thing, and this is not a one-person job. This is a big job. So when we run a program, if we have 4 or 5 challenges, every challenge has a challenge lead. Every challenge has a challenge team of 5, 6, sometimes 7 members. And of course, we have all the people involved in selecting the final projects that we're going to take on. So it's a big effort. And again, that's also why it's important to have really senior top-level support, because they can also ensure the business buy-in and make sure that people are available to work on this. Yeah, this is just a little bit to show the networked organization. So in the middle is Ali van der Boom, and she's really the Paint the Future program lead. And Mignon Darnaud to the left-hand side is also now full-time on this program. And then depending on which type of program we're running, you'll see additional people being drawn into this program. This is just a screenshot of our website. So one of the things that that we noticed when we ran our first startup challenge is that we actually thought, okay, we did this stakeholder mapping and with internal stakeholder mapping, and we were thinking about, okay, who do we need to involve, and when, and is it going to be easy or hard? And we thought, okay, legal, that we need to involve them early, because that's probably going to be a problem, because we're working in a different way, we're communicating a lot, etc. And we need comms, but comms, they're out there, so that should be easy. And then actually turned out to be initially the other way around, and legal was totally on board, very, very innovative, and helping us really set up the right framework. And then with comms, we actually ran into all kinds of IT problems. Everything was really designed around just maintaining status quo for a big multinational global company. Firewalls in place, whatever. So we actually ended up with going to a separate URL. So we have our letspaintthefuture.com, and this is fully dedicated now to Paint the Future. And of course, there's all the kinds of links to our AkzoNobel environment. But yeah, just to say that sometimes I think in this program we've had so many surprises and learnings and realizations. So I think it's been a wonderful journey for the team to go through this. And just a little recap, I think I touched most of these points, but I just wanted to make sure that Jessica asked me really to share also how we design a program. And looking back, I think there's been a lot of success, but there's also gone a lot of effort into that, and a lot of scenario planning, and a lot of problems we encountered, and then we had to quickly solve those problems. So it's been a ride, but I think some of the learnings that we had, I put on here. So when we do a program design, we always start with the collaboration partner in mind and really think about, okay, how can we bring value to them, and how do we deliver this value? And that could be by having an accelerate program at the end. It could also be by having a kickoff event. So it's all in those little details. And also, what value do we want to achieve for ourselves? And that also comes back in the kind of challenges that we open up, how much effort we put on internal communication, external communication, etc. We need to be honest about how much we can absorb. And I think this is a important discussion to have, because yeah, you can be very open and have always open idea boxes, and you get overwhelmed with ideas. And if you don't have a good way to deal with those ideas and give proper feedback also to the partner, it sort of dies in beauty. So it's very important to be realistic about how much can we absorb, and that you really manage expectations before you start with a program. And also try to steer the volume of ideas you get by also the way you position the program, but also in how specific you are in describing your challenges. Yeah, and there's always the part about incorporating lessons learned from previous programs. So we always end with extensive evaluations, and we always take that very seriously, that we close off programs very properly, and immediately take that forward as well. And then once we have that in mind, then we really start with design principles of the program. Do we do an event, or is it going to be an accelerator? Are submissions going to be visible to everyone, or is there a certain confidentiality level required? How do we set up the evaluation process? As I shared already, we've played around with different models. And this seems so trivial, but it's so important to get this right, and that you get the right order. And these are things actually that we also, again, with our core team, with all those people together, we make sure we have time to actually talk with each other, and then say, okay, and we make decisions, and then we go with that. So not everything you can design up front. I think that's what I want to say, is that sometimes during the program, something happens, and then you need to think about another way to actually move through that. And I think an example here is the employee challenge, where we actually got so much engagement and so much, and we were approached also outside of the platform by so many people and with comments, etc., that we said, oh, we need to do something with that, because there's so much enthusiasm. This is not just people submitting ideas and commenting. People want to do more. So then we decided, okay, we're going to launch Pairwise tomorrow, and we just do it. So I think it's also about taking risks sometimes. Yeah, and it's also in the design principles very important to talk about how much are we going to share about our needs, but also about the intentions with potential partners. Um, do we intend to select 30 ideas, or is it 5, or what do we want to do, and how are we going to select them? Because then we also ask, of course, people to do some self-assessment beforehand. So we do try to get that balance between quantity and quality already, so we can really do justice to the high quality ideas that are gonna come in. And this all leads into, of course, I mean, something we all have in common, I think, is the connection with hype. And so this all comes back in how we set up our platform. And that's basically what I wanted to share. So just to show you a little bit on what we aim for with our Paint the Future program. In addition to this, we of course have our normal collaborations with partners. We have university programs going on. We do value engineering with our suppliers, etc. And this is really a way to get also the innovation angle more emphasized and to get to the bigger, better proposals and get them implemented. So that's it. I'll stop sharing my screen, Jessica, and then you can
All right.
see what came in through chat. I don't know.
Yes, there was a bunch of questions, a bunch also of people saying thank you so much for this presentation. So the first question I had was it easier for you to launch an internal campaign rather than the external one? And what are the major differences in terms of approach according to you? What are your lessons from this comparison?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, I think the big difference with the internal campaign was again, we knew our audience very well, because we were the audience basically, right? Us and our colleagues. So we could much more align to our normal communication ways, and we have networks going through into all regions. So it was really a matter of finding the right way to reach people and to make them aware that this campaign was running. Um, so it felt in that sense way more personal, if that's the right word. So much more really people getting together and collaborating together. So I think there was also less of a competition feel. People were just trying to share and really build on each other's ideas. So we saw much more equal discussions happening rather than one person asking something and the supplier started giving an answer. There was way more, oh, did you think of this? And I have the experience with whatever. And so it was really much more, it already felt much more like one community, which makes sense, and it should, because we're one company. So I think we were, for that reason, also very quick in setting this up, because it less exposure to the outside world, internal, so we didn't have to go through all the hoops with sealing everything off and making sure that everything we do is I mean, we paid as much attention, of course, to the design, but we could just move much more quickly.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. These are good things to consider as soon as you want to run an open innovation program and challenges that are very different from internal campaigns, of course. So we do have a bunch of questions, so that's good. One that is related also to what you said in terms of like being worldwide, not only where you're at. Did you set your platform as a single language one or a multiple language platform? And if so, how did the multi-language problem in the ideas, like how did you deal with that factor?
Yeah, so we set it up as in English as a basic language. For Brazil, we did look at using indeed the Brazilian Portuguese as support. The Brazil Startup Challenge, they did accept submissions in Portuguese.
In Portuguese.
but we didn't change the language on the platform, and that was okay.
Mhm.
We do talk about sometimes, what would we do if we go into Asia, for example, if we want to do another regional challenge, which we're not sure yet. Would it be required? So I think this is for us also again part of the design of the program. Depends on which region we want to attract.
Mhm.
We need to make that decision if we want to, because the reason why the reason we don't say immediately, okay, let's go for local language, is that even though it's a regional program, there's still a lot of global value. And so we're very much into sharing across the company, what the value is, and inspiring people with solutions. So that's why we try to make it as accessible also in terms of language. But of course there is the option, of course, to activate that, so that it is in the back of our minds, and we'll probably just program by program we make that decision. But I think for suppliers, and for the first startup, of course we already attracted global people, so people from everywhere, and also for the employee challenge actually. Um, and in that case, we checked and we said, okay, do you think it's needed? But all the feedback we got was no, it's fine. And of course, also the submissions in that case need to be in English, because we want to have top management from across the company look at it, and they're not all English speaking or
Yeah.
Dutch speaking or Portuguese speaking. It's a whole range. So English is a common language then for us.
Okay. We have several questions regarding the suppliers you worked with. So we have one. First of all, comparing with traditional workshop conference call with suppliers, sorry, what do you think the benefits is of using an online platform, especially when it comes to open innovation with suppliers?
Yeah, indeed, and that's of course a question that we got a lot, also from the suppliers themselves, because I said, well, it feels like you're putting a layer between us now. We're used to actually picking up the phone and talking to you guys, and now you want to put that platform in between us. And we said, well, no, that's not what we try to do. And so we also made sure that we could make it personal with the first wave of 35 suppliers. We had that personal interaction, because we invited a selection to our event. But the reason we want to do it like that is because it allows us to share their ideas more widely, and
Mhm.
speed up. Because now what often happens, is that a particular supplier they would know one person in UK in a particular lab, and they would call them and say, okay, I have this solution, would you like to try it? And they say, okay, yeah, I can try it for I'm working in the wood business, so I can try it for wood. And then it takes a while, and they need to get a reminder, and then, oh yeah, I tried it, no, it doesn't work. Oh, okay. And then the supplier goes to someone in Sweden and he says, because he knows someone there, and then he says, could you test this? Oh yeah, I work for decorative paint, I could test this. And then so it would take a supplier like 6 months, and then he would have had two persons from two businesses look at it. So and even if we have the more structured discussions, which we also have at a higher level, at a company level, still it's sort of limited to the people in the room, right? So
Mhm.
we make an assessment to say, okay, let's have people from this, and this business there, but you don't get that exposure. So actually the value that we try to give, and I think that did come across, is that by having them post them all at the same time in one place, we could have people, and we had people from across all our business units at the same time look at the ideas. And I think that was actually the spin-off value, was that this happened. And then the right people were able to contact the supplier and say, hey, I work in marine,
Mhm.
I actually like this. I didn't know you guys had this. Can we have a chat about that? And that's actually how now quite a few projects are starting up,
Hmm.
that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that a part that you use to convince them to take part in the program and to be active on the platform? Is that one of your key messages to motivate them?
Yeah, and we actually don't close the door through the other route. So we're
Okay.
not telling them you can't call us anymore, or you can still call your contact person or your standard persons, but also be mindful if you want to pitch ideas now, probably you're going to be told to bring it through the platform. And that did happen because some of their contacts, of course, were involved in the program, and they said, well, maybe better if you bring it to the platform, and they did. And I think I'm talking about, of course, the success. So I'm talking about being selected and the ones that we actually picked up and spin-off effects, etc. There were, of course, the majority of the proposals, we told them no. And I think that's also an answer, and maybe not an answer they want to hear, but we often get the feedback, when I talk to AkzoNobel, it feels like, I'm talking to a black box. I just send something, I ask a question, I never hear back. Well, now they heard back, and maybe it wasn't the preferred answer, but at least we told them no, and I think that's also important to say. Yeah? We're clear about what we want to work on and what we don't want to work on, and it's still okay. They can still join in the second cycle, so they didn't. Because we said no, we didn't scrap them from the program or anything. We just said, well, this proposal at this time is not relevant to us.
I have a couple of more questions, so I think I'm going to have to make some selections. But one also is like, how did you target the suppliers that took part? Like, decide who you will include there. What were the criteria, the thresholds you applied, and did you also select non-suppliers? And if it was the case, based on which criteria did you do so?
Yeah, so with the first wave, we focused on suppliers, so really not distributors or anything, just suppliers that we had a relation with, and that was not easy because we knew, okay, we have a limit to what we can absorb, so we need to be honest there. But of course, yeah, together between our sourcing directors and our research directors, we know what the parties are that we want to collaborate with, and this was really focusing on, okay, where do we see that we can have successful collaborations on innovation projects? So, of course, we do a lot of value engineering, and we do a lot of that also with many suppliers across our regions, and that we continue to do that. But this is really focusing on the bigger things. So we really did that across our company to say, okay, who should be included? And now for the second wave, we're extending that, but we still apply those kind of rules.
Okay. And we have one important question in there is, how do you manage intellectual property?
Yeah, we manage that, and I think that's important that you do that from the start. So when we open up our program, we with the startups and actually with the suppliers, as I said, the submission phase is really on a non-confidential basis. So we are very open and honest about that because there's no other way we can do it. We cannot commit ourselves to any non-disclosure agreements because we're getting at the same time submissions from so many different partners. It's impossible to ask our human beings to keep that separate in their brains. So we can't commit to that, so we don't, and we also ask the people submitting to also don't submit anything that you consider confidential. And if we happen to ask a question that you're uncomfortable with, tell us that you don't want to answer, and that's fine. So let us both protect that border in that sense. Then once we go into the next phase, so for the Startup Challenge, we then had the Accelerator program. So there we did go into, of course, an agreement, because then, of course, we were collaborating further, but then it's also more manageable because there were known parties at the time, 20, and we were able also ourselves to commit on that. And then when we go into a project, again, different rules, and this is broader than just intellectual property, of course, but then well, what we do, and this is why legal was such an important team player from the start, is that we don't have one big legal contract that nobody understands because it's full of difficult words that we push down everybody's throat. We actually look at, okay, what are the needs of this partner that we're working with, and even with the startups, in some case it's a joint development agreement. In another case, it's actually a supply agreement, that they just supply a raw material to us. In another case, it's still so far out, we need a research agreement with them. So we we every time we thought about, okay, what is the best model, and we actually talked to the partner, what would be the best model for this collaboration, and depending on that, we went forward with the right legal coverage.
All right. So also one thing that is important into that is like what type of submission you were looking for, like already existing solutions or rather concept proposal? Like how far did they have to be in the process to be ready to submit their idea?
Yeah, so it had to be more than an idea,
Yeah.
indeed. So not, I mean, we actually got a few of those, but we actually took them out straight away. People that say, "Oh, I read something on the internet about this and this, and could that maybe work for you guys?" That was not what we were looking for. We were looking for stuff that was already existed already, so it was tangible in a sense. But maybe not yet applied in the paints and coatings industry. So one of the selected projects from the Startup Challenge is Appelix. They develop a drone with software with that, a tethered drone that can actually paint big structures with our paint. Well, they had the drone and the software. They just never tested it with paint. So in that collaboration, it's very clear. They have the intellectual property over drones and the software. We supply the paint, and maybe we need to alter our paint so that it is that you can actually use it in that sense. So yeah, there was a drone. It was just not yet tried with our paint. So we did ask a certain level of existence. It shouldn't just be an idea, because then it's really too far out.
We have also a question regarding your team. So you had this full slide of like how many people are involved, where they are, and so on. And someone wanted to know like how many people do you have that are really full time dedicated, like their job position is related to innovation, and is it just like something that is at a corporate level, or a little bit more details, basically?
Yeah. So we have of course a lot of people working on innovation. For the Paint the Future program, we have 2 full-time. And then, yeah, depending on the program, people are drawn in. So for example, I ran the supplier program. So at that moment in time during that program, I sort of paused a lot of my other activities, and probably I was like 80% of my time I was on this program.
Okay.
But it's not my day-to-day job. So in my job description, it's not Paint the Future or anything. But I'm sort of part of this extended core team. So we have 2 people really full time on this, and of course, yeah, if you would add up the amount of time that other people work on this, like our CTO, he's very much into this. So I think that probably every day he's somehow doing something around Paint Future. But yeah, if you look at innovation in general, I mean that's of course a very big part of AkzoNobel.
All right, so we have 3 minutes left, maybe one last. Oh, that's a difficult one. Someone asked about the budget for that activity, so maybe that's something you will address separately, because I think there's a lot of components in there in terms of budget. So that's quite wild. But I will invite you to get back to this person directly. And someone is asking like, how will evolve your program? Like, what's the next step, literally?
Yeah, so we're if you looked at one of my initial slides, you saw, okay, we started the first year 2 programs, then we did 4, and then next year I think we have 6 sort of as an idea. The way we're developing is that this year we're leveraging a little bit of what we learned. So there's going to be, and we're growing some of these programs. So supplier, we're growing. We're looking at another regional startup challenge, but then we want to bring it back to a global thing again, and that might be a startup challenge, but I think we also want to do something more pronounced with customers in there, value chain thinking in there, and then continue to think about, okay, how can we bring this into a more continuous modus at some point where we have a really lively ecosystem also of partners finding each other in there. But that's still a longer term thing. We already see that happening on some on a certain level, because of course people find each other already through the different activities that we have, and I think that's really great. And we're thinking about, okay, how can we bring more value to that and actually get more of that going.